Here's a fish that not too many anglers will catch one of this size anyway in Michigan, although they do grow, and they grow quite a bit larger than this. It's a lake sturgeon. This was caught 1 year ago, about this time of year, by Dwayne Farson. He was fishing Muskegon Lake. He was fishing with 8-pound test line, going after walleye through the ice. Boy, did he get a surprise. He was on Michigan Outdoors a year ago with his story, and here's how it goes. What was it like to be in a small shanty, you two guys, and a fish like this on top of the ice?
Your hands full.
Have to be there. You know, the fish came up, and I was reeling, and I said it looked like Josh. No, I mean it. It just come right up into the hole. Jim, I said, oh, sturgeon. He got the gaff. He pulled it up. Jim's a big man. It's a small shanty. He pulled it up, and he leaned backwards and slipped, and here's the sturgeon across his lap. And
all three of you in the shanty.
Knocking.
We're going to talk more about this huge lake sturgeon. We're going to have a wildlife sketch about a little teeny shrew. We're going to meet a political figure who's new on the scene in the legislature and hunting and fishing and a lot more, so you stay tuned. It's Thursday night, time for Michigan Outdoors.
From the rugged shore and woodlands of the north, it's history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fisheries. To the farmlands of the southern counties, we'll look around again at all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan.
Here, would you grab an end there, Bob? Here, grab that, Steve. Help me out here. That isn't very heavy, is it? No, it isn't, because the sturgeon is mounted, of course. Mounted by Bob Armstrong of Hildy Taxidermy down there in the end. Bob, you do terrific work. You've really decorated the Michigan Outdoors cabin here with your work. And Steve Kenzel, you're from the Extension Service Fisheries at Michigan State University.
That's correct.
You know a lot about the biology of this fish. Well, Bob, you've been inside it at your taxidermy shop. Let's go to Hildy Taxidermy in Clarkston right now to find out how he mounted this sturgeon. Of course, you're doing a lot of things at this time of year, deer season, and you're still working on deer heads and birds, and there's a red fox. A total menagerie there of animals to mount. You probably don't do too many sturgeon, though.
No, not too many. I think it's about the third one we've ever done, Fred.
Okay, well, a 64-pounder doesn't even make the Master Angler program. They're supposed to be 70, but it isn't very often they're caught on hook and line like this. But, Steve, right now, they're measuring out the proportions because the body of a sturgeon is just meat and cartilage.
That's correct. There's just a little bit of bone in some of the superficial portions of the skull.
And the skin is, what's the skin feel like? I know on the outside it's sort of like sandpaper.
It's like shark skin. It's a tough skin, no scales, and it's real strong.
Somewhat like leather.
Yes.
Now they're taking the carcass out of there. Of course, you know, the game and fish that you get coming in your shop are not really anything you'd want to take home and brew up a stew with. They've been frozen and thawed and on television and hanging for pictures and in and out of the freezer. But is sturgeon meat pretty good, Steve?
It's excellent. It's particularly good when it's smoked, and then other times when it's prepared right, it is good fresh.
Well, there we see the cartilage. Instead of bones, this fish has cartilage throughout, much like sharks, which will be replaced with a styrofoam body. At one time in Michigan, Steve, I've seen the history books where there were literally stacks of sturgeon on the beaches that they were burning, the commercial fishermen, because they were such a nuisance.
That's right. They would get into the nets and prohibit them from bringing in the rest of their catch. And not only would they be burned on shore, but sometimes they were used for fuel wood to take care of steamboats and other things like that, fed to hogs, of quite a variety of things. That was up until about 1860, though. Then they realized the commercial value of it.
Well, not just the commercial value, but the sport value. They're recognized as a game fish, although they're quite difficult to catch on hook and line. But here you are, your taxidermist, Bob, is supplementing with some clay in there to put over the styrofoam form, packing in around the mouth and the head. So actually, you're just working with a big piece of leather.
Yes, really.
And stretching it and trying to make it look lifelike again. Gluing it on.
White glue, right? Glue it right over that styrofoam form that we carved.
Has this skin undoubtedly has been treated?
Yes. We soak it in a solution to cure the skin and to prevent any deterioration.
Something like tanning of a hide.
Yes,
Okay, and then you pin it and stitch it up. An interesting process. Of course, we'll have this fish down at the Greater Michigan Boat and Fishing Show, which opens this weekend. We'll have this in our Michigan Outdoors booth, by the way, on Saturday, and it'll be a part of our taxidermy exposition. Quite an art, taxidermy. Stitching up a sturgeon. I'm sure at times people would look at the pile of skin there and say, how are you going to ever make that look lifelike again? But it's done, mounted on the board. You back the fins. Of course, all the fins have to... Are these fins any different, Steve, than regular fish fins?
No, they're not. They're typical. Except for the tail fin, which is a heterocercal fin, and it's the only one like this we have in Michigan.
And they're the barbels, of course, are done. This is the mounted sturgeon. Painted. All the paints have to be, or the colors have to be restored with painting.
With oil paints, yes.
Well, this is a fantastic sturgeon. What a tail to go behind it. Now, the mouth, you can see the mouth here, is used... Why they're rarely caught on hook and line, first of all, I mentioned the hook would have trouble getting into this rubbery, leathery mouth. And what do they eat, Steve?
Well, they'll feed on a variety of bottom-dwelling creatures, including crayfish and mayfly nymphs, caddisfly nymphs, just about anything they can find. Even some record of them feeding on wheat and grain around elevators.
Wow. How old is a sturgeon this size?
This one is probably a little over 60 years old. And a typical one that's about 5 feet long would be about 50 pounds and be about 50 years old.
Fellow who was at our sportsman's banquet this past Saturday night got the largest sturgeon last year. It was 155 pounds. How old would that one be?
I would imagine that would be well over 100 years old. They're very slow growers.
Fellas, thanks for coming down, and we'll have this on display at our booth down at the Greater Michigan Boat and Fishing Show. Bob, you can come down and see it. And we had our sportsman's banquet last Saturday night. You think this was a fishtail? We had a lot of them there. We're going to run by in a trophy report right now, pictures of a number of people who were there at our Michigan Outdoors Sportsman's Banquet. We had quite a few youngsters at the banquet who caught master anglerfish, including Joel Luther from Northville. He was fishing with a jig on a little lake in Wayne County, and look at what he caught, a 1 pound, 7-ounce bluegill. That was the second largest bluegill taken in Michigan last year. And here's the largest smallmouth bass. Bob Harper from Saginaw caught it on a spinner bait on August 28th up in Grand Traverse County. 6 pounds, 4 ounces, the largest smallmouth taken in Michigan. Also using his spinner bait was Bob Hull from Davison, and he caught a largemouth bass. Looks like a dandy, doesn't it? Took it out of Lake Nipissing, 6 pounds, 15 ounces, almost a 7-pounder. But you know, that was only the 10th largest largemouth taken in Michigan last year. Here's a big flathead catfish that Frank Porth from Morley caught on a minnow. He was fishing the Grand River in Kent County. That's 40 inches long. It weighs 30 pounds, and that was only the 3rd largest flathead caught in this state. Maybe a smaller trophy, but equally as important, to Snuffy McGill from Royal Oak. He caught it on a minnow up in Grand Traverse Bay. That's a 2 pound, 12-ounce yellow perch, a real whopper, and that was the 2nd largest yellow perch caught in the state last year. In her right hand, Kathy Mertens is holding the largest walleye reported in Michigan in 1982. She's from Grosse Pointe Farm. She was fishing right in some home waters there, Lake St. Clair, with a pencil plug on November 19th. Kathy Mertens brought in 13.5-pound walleye, the largest one caught in Michigan, the largest one reported in the Master Angler Program in 1982. Now, this is a big Great Lakes brown. You could tell that. You'd think it would win the category, but it's the 2nd largest. Hiram Tharp from Traverse City was fishing up in West Grand Traverse Bay using a smelt on a tip-up just about this time last year, and he caught a 26-pound, 4-ouncer. That's the 2nd largest, I said, because Tom Packard from South Haven caught one 4 ounces larger, 26 pounds and a half. Used a bimbo lure, which is like a Cleo, fishing. He's from South Haven, and he was fishing the Black River in Van Buren County, and that is the largest Great Lakes brown reported in Michigan in 1982. Here's an interesting husband-wife story. Glenn Gillette from Otsego was trolling with a Northport nailer off Berrien County. He's proud of that 14-pound, 7-ounce steelhead. Who wouldn't be proud of it? Came in 103rd in the state, but his wife, Vivian, golly, Vivian, we got to hand it to you. You showed up, Glenn. She was trolling a Northport nailer, and she caught an 18-pound, 12-ouncer, and that put her 8th in the ranks. Greg Schweigert from Midland was trolling an Andy Reeker's grizzly up in Ned's Lake in Schoolcraft County. That was last May, and he caught these 2 brook trout. The one in his right hand weighs 3 pounds, 1 ounce. What a whopper, but that was only the 4th largest one caught in the state. And here's a fellow who is notable among master anglers. His name is Chris Mills. He's from Bel Air. This 7-pound, 10-ounce inland brown got him the 6th place in inland brown trout in the state. He also took a walleye, and that's 8.5 pounds. That was only 40th, but that's a prize in anybody's book. And he made the local papers with this lake trout. 19 pounds, 14 ounces, the 17th largest. Chris was the only master angler to report 3 fish in the Master Angler program last year, and of course we'll make him the Master Angler of the Year. And I had to ask him at the banquet, does he have a job, or does he work at all, or does he spend all his time fishing? Are you looking for a job?
Maybe.
Maybe? Well, I figured you weren't working.
Well, I try to fit in work a little bit around my fishing, if I can.
Okay, well, you live up in Bel Air. What do you do?
I'm a truck driver for a living. Fish a little bit.
Fish a little bit. I bet. 3 master angler fish. Got this at 7 in the morning. Was that before work?
Yes, and after work, too.
Oh, he fishes both. Okay, Chris Mills. Well, congratulations, Chris. 7-pound, 10-ounce inland brown trout, the 6th largest. He's our Master Angler of the Year. Congratulations.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. He came down from Bel Air, the Traverse City area. Well, we'll have more from the Sportsman's Banquet in 2 weeks, and I wonder, in 1983, will somebody catch more than 3 master angler species? Well, we'll find out during the year, but we'll close this trophy report right now with Chris Mills, who's entered more master angler trophies than anyone else, who showed up at our Sportsman's Banquet, so we'll make Chris our Michigan Outdoors Master Angler of the Year, and that's our Michigan Outdoors Trophy Report. You know, we sportsmen in Michigan lost a lot of friends in the legislature this last election. Many of them retired and moved on, but we have some new faces on the scene. One that I'm very happy to see, Representative Jerry Bartnick. Jerry.
How are you?
Congratulations on your victory.
Thank you.
You're from Monroe. And of course, the reason we want to talk with you today is you are the head of the new subcommittee of the Conservation Committee, the subcommittee on hunting and fishing.
Yes, I am, and what we were trying to do is have someone who hunts and fishes to get on a committee to be able to talk to sportsmen and understand what they're talking about.
That's great. A lot of sportsmen in this state are glad to see your face. They may not know you yet. Let's just take a moment to get to know you. You've lived and worked in Monroe all of your life?
I was born and raised in Toledo, Ohio. I was educated at Toledo University and Bowling Green State University. I went up into Michigan in Bedford Township, where I live right now, 17 years ago. And I became the art teacher there. From teaching art to having problems financially, the school system, I went back on the railroad, which put my way through college, and I have 19 and a half years there now.
And tell me, you squeezed in a little bit of hunting and fishing.
I've been hunting and fishing since the 7th grade. This year with the elections, the first time I didn't go out, and that's probably been the low point of my life right now. So I'm going to make up for it next year.
What's your favorite kind of hunting?
My favorite is going duck hunting and then pheasant hunting.
Do you have family?
I have 2 daughters. One's going to be 18 and the other is going to be 13.
Oh, they probably don't hunt and fish then.
The 18-year-old shot her first goose at age 10, shot her first 2 pheasants at age 12, and she goes out with me. And the hardest part for her is being out in the cold duck hunting.
Sure.
But right now she's growing up, so I think she's going to have to make a decision for a couple of years whether she wants to be a lady and not go hunting, or she wants to hunt, and I like to take her with me any chance I get.
What do you mean be a lady and not go hunting?
Well, when you have a mother saying, you know, now's the time you're growing up, the dresses are different, young ladies don't hunt, that seems to be a little trial and tribulation right now.
Sure. Well, that's something we'll be dealing with out in Michigan Outdoors. We have a lot of women master anglers. Came to our banquet last Saturday night, caught some big fish, biggest walleye in the state, as a matter of fact. Maybe your daughter will catch that. You walleye fish?
I've walleye fished in Lake Erie ever since I was a little kid. My daughters have gone out when I was old enough to put a flotation jacket on them, plus have a rope tied onto them. My daughter has outfished me many times, and we enjoy it going out in Lake Erie.
Is walleye your favorite type of fishing?
Actually, it's gotten to be one of my favorite. I prefer right now going fly fishing in the Pierre Marquette for Chinook salmon.
Huh. Well, great. So you do have a well-rounded background.
I enjoy
in
it.
the outdoors.
And I think that's part of it. You know, I love getting outdoors, and any chance I get, especially now, I'm going to be out there.
Now, this subcommittee on hunting and fishing, that's the subcommittee that's going to handle all of the bills on hunting and fishing in the state?
That's the way it's set up, to look at any bills that come through that affect hunting and fishing. Also, I've been charged with looking at the laws and trying to clean them up.
Okay. You've already made a little start here. I happen to know we have a question for our audience, which we're going to pop up here in a minute. You've introduced a bill recommending that the state liberalize its law on the number of lines an angler can have in the water. at
That's
one time.
correct, because one of the questions I've always asked is, why 2 lines and 4 hooks? Why not 4 lines? What is the difference? The answer that I've always received is that's the law. I've never yet received anything saying it is because of this or this. And what I want to do is avoid the confusion. A lot of senior citizens, ice fishing on Lake Erie, get arrested every year because they're out there with 4 lines and they say, no, that's a violation. So let's just have it 4 and be done with it, rather than have, you have to know how many lines, you have to know how many hooks. This way, I've talked to charter boat fishermen, and the thing is, they go out alone themselves. Yet you have a boat, they have maybe a $30,000, $40,000 investment, and all they can put out is 2 lines. And this way, you know, we're worried about limit, 6, you get your 6 fish, you go home. But why not do it with 4 lines, and that way you don't have to worry about different numbers and everything's consistent.
I know Bob Garner from our staff checked with some fisheries biologists, and they couldn't come up with any reason why we have this 2-line law, why the limitation. What are the feelings that you've run up against in the DNR? Does the Fish Division say okay, or?
Right now, they've looked at it and they can't remember why. And right now, we haven't had any opposition. The big thing that I've run into in the public is saying, just make it easier so we don't have a problem.
Okay, why don't we pose this question? We'll start off with a question posed by you for our audience here, our Michigan Outdoors audience, who can write to us. The question is, should an angler in Michigan be allowed to use more than 2 lines at once? So why don't you write to us here at Michigan Outdoors? You're looking at the largest species of fish in the state, the lake sturgeon, the one that Dwayne Farson caught, comes from the family of fish that you don't find any larger fish in the state. Now, Glenn Betterer, our Extension Wildlife man, you brought us a mammal from the smallest family of mammals in the state.
Yes, you bet.
Why don't we pull this out here? This is the Shrew family. There he is. Very sensitive to light, which is why we've had to keep him darkened here. We'll pull this back one out too. Now this is not the least shrew, which is even smaller than this, correct?
It's the little least or pygmy shrew, both occurring here in Michigan, are not much bigger than that.
You're talking about an inch long?
Yeah, about an inch long.
So this one is kind of a monster as far as shrews go.
Yes, it is. This is the short-tailed shrew, and this is the most common in Michigan.
Oh, look at it.
And look at him, yes. Shrews are very, very active animals, and in today's vocabulary we call them hyperactive. And you can see what distinguishes a shrew: that long, very mobile snout, and the fact that his eyes are very tiny, almost invisible.
Well, I can't even see him.
And just very, very tiny eyes, and no external ears. He's often confused with the mole because he has that soft gray fur like a mole, and he prefers moist, dark places, as you were saying. But this is a predator, and that's what's hard to believe, that this little creature is really the voracious and rapacious animal that it is. That's why Shakespeare used the terminology shrew in applying it to someone who's very active and very high-strung and very rapacious. This is the first time I've had one of these in captivity, and I knew that they were very, very voracious, that they ate tremendous quantities of food because of their high level of activity, but I didn't know how much. And last night, when I got home from work, I started feeding him, or her, I don't know what sex it is, I haven't had a chance to look, and it ate 3 earthworms.
Wow.
Before I went to bed.
Like nightcrawler type?
Nightcrawler, yeah. This little animal ate 3, and so before I went to bed, I put a baby mouse that we caught. It was a young house mouse in a trap, and it ate that before morning. So since last night, this little tiny animal has had 3 earthworms and a baby mouse to eat.
And they probably eat that quantity every day.
Oh yes, they're constantly eating, and they're active day and night, and they eat just about everything that's edible, from earthworms to insects to some vegetable matter, and even baby animals if they can catch them and kill them, such as baby birds or baby mice or baby moles.
Do people find these, do they come into the house?
Rarely do they come into the house, but when they do come into the house, Fred, they cause the strangest problems. They're insectivores. They like to eat insects, and they like to dig through the earth to get those insects. So when they get into the house, the one place they often start digging is in potted plants.
I'll be done.
People get up in the morning, and here's all the soil in the pot on the floor, and the plant in the pot. And what caused this?
A shrew. Well, if you found one and you picked it up, He said, oh, what a cute little furry little mouse.
No, you wouldn't want to do that because, one, they have very long, sharp front teeth. They're not a rodent, and their saliva is slightly poisonous. So
They're not a rodent?
no, this is not a rodent. They're a member of the group of insectivorous mammals, related more closely to the mole than the mouse.
I'll be darned. Well, there it is, the smallest mammal. I think we have a shrew in our taxidermy exposition.
That's right.
As I recall, we do, and that's going to be down at Cobo Hall at the Boat and Fishing Show. Let's go to some tape from last Thursday, a week from today, when we held our taxidermy exposition and competition. This was the competition part, the judging, at the judging pavilion at Michigan State. And of course, the Cooperative Extension Service, through you, Glenn, helped line that up at the pavilion.
That was quite a turnout. I was overwhelmed.
How many taxidermists did you expect?
Well, we'd set up tables to handle 20 or 30 taxidermists.
We had over 80. Hundreds and hundreds of mounts that we had to judge, sorting out the best mounts we could find in each species category. And this is what we're going to have on display starting Wednesday. That's February 9th at the Boat and Fishing Show. We had mammals represented of all types, fishers, martins, mink, things that people probably haven't ever seen before, including the shrews. I know we don't have any on the tape. We have large animals, which we have in Michigan, of course, our black bear. We have dioramas as well, not just the single mounts. There's some taxidermists, we went to Frank Neumeyer's to look at his work. He is, I don't know if you call him the dean of taxidermists.
Very, very good.
We're gonna-
Some of the finest work I've ever seen.
Well, his taxidermy has won the best of show in national and international competitions. So we have in this state really the best taxidermist, you could almost say, in the world.
Well, this competition was very impressive, Fred, because there were times when we were trying to choose the best of 10 or 12 very, very good, and if you hadn't been such a difficult taskmaster and say, pick the best,
That's
one
right,
more,
that's
eliminate one more, it was very, very difficult.
Well, our job was to judge there, and we have the best. Now, the deer heads we could narrow down to about 10 or 15 of the best. We're going to have all of those on display at the Boat and Fishing Show. And it's going to be quite an exposition. We've never done this before. This is our hopefully first annual Michigan Outdoors Taxidermy Exposition coming up at the Boat and Fishing Show. And there's some of the mounts. We had one heck of a time sorting through 70 deer mounts to come up with the best. I don't know what we're going to do, but we'll take another look at them all. Not all 70, but the 10 that we have narrowed down for the finals. But the racks were tremendous.
They're huge racks, very, very impressive.
There's our judging committee, DNR biologists, people from Michigan State, from University of Michigan, all of them biologists, because what we're looking for is the most realistic.
Yes, we were looking for characteristics of coloration, of body configuration, of lifelikeliness, that art in taxidermy of making the animal look alive, giving it a living expression.
But when people think about art, wildlife art, they generally think of, I guess, what we would call flat art. You'll see everything from the large sturgeon to the tiny shrew. Well, thanks, Ed. If that isn't enough coming up, we have a Boat and Fishing Show coming up that's just crammed with activities and events at our art competition. We'll talk about that in a minute. But now, let's go to some of the people who are going to be there. It sure is. And he's going to be there, Ed Stowe, the fish filleting champ, this weekend. Now, we also have what we call a boating education center, and one of the headliners there every hour on May Day emergencies will be Eric Olson from the DNR Marine Safety Division talking about life jackets, how to stay safe in the outdoors in boating. Also, then we have a fishing education center. Going to be an interesting one for all you anglers. Night crawler knowledge with Captain Bob Pichet, the Worm Man. He's going to be there with a whole array of his night crawler bedding, and he's going to teach you how to keep these night crawlers safe and happy and excellent bait. And that's going to be we're going to have Pete Rubianis down at the show. Now, he's the guy who took us out August 2nd?
What a day that was.
33 salmon in about 4 hours. Can't beat that type of fishing. Well, he'll be there. Captain Emil Dean, Captain John Miner, Hank Bradley, a whole array of fishing experts. They'll be from Walleye Magazine, Bud Reiser, doing walleye seminars from the Detroit Steelheaders, St. Clair Walleye Association. So Fishing with the Experts is going to be in our Fishing Education Center. Then Bob Knopf from Berkeley will be there. Berkeley will be there all week, and he'll be coming in later in the week with his presentations, but he's going to have a knot tying contest.
I got to try that.
Anybody who ties, they're going to have some prizes for anybody who ties a knot over the pound test that's on the label, and also speed casting competition. You got to try that, Ed. In fact, I'll take you on. We'll take Bob Garner on.
Okay.
And the public is invited to join us for all of these at the Boat and Fishing Show. We got these narrowed down. We have a big 9 days ahead of us.
And they're beautiful prints,
That's
too.
right. If you folks don't join us at the Boat and Fishing Show, you'll join us at the Boat and Fishing Show next Thursday night because we're going to telecast from the boat show.
Look forward to that.
Okay, well, have a good weekend, and close out this show. You can sort of make up your mind in advance on some of these prints.
The rugged shore and woodlands of the north, its history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fisheries. To the farmlands of the southern counties we'll look around again, and all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan. And sometimes when the moon brings out the diamonds in the snow, and the stillness of the forest lies encased in Arctic cold, the wind might whisper through the trees, listen if you can, it tells you of the beauty in the state of Michigan.